Hello again and welcome to your favorite magazine program. I'm Theodore Henry. Now, for those of you who may be unaware of the true meaning behind social justice, it basically refers to the fair treatment of everyone in society regarding access to healthcare, politics, opportunities, and the overall operation and well-being of a country's people. Now, why is this relevant? It's World Day of Social Justice, and we have the Ministry of Justice who ensures the good of all people. Also coming up, we explore Jamaica through the lens of nature. You don't want to miss it? More after the news.
Unsure of when you should apply for your NHT contributions refund? This is your reminder. The National Housing Trust, NHT, is now accepting refund applications for contributions made in 2015. Here is what you need to know. Eligible contributors must apply online. Customers may apply for their refund via NHT's website at nht.gov.jm or through its mobile app, NHT Mobile. The NHT has extended the cash refund granted to eligible public sector workers for 2023. For more information, you may visit their website, nht.gov.jm, send an email to wecare@nht.gov.jm or call 876-929-6500 or 888-225-5648. The National Housing Trust, the key to your home.
Good day, I'm Stephen McHugh, and this is your JIS News for Monday, February 20, 2023. Prime Minister Andrew Holness has officially opened a Jamaican consulate office in the Bahamas. During the ceremony on Friday, Mr. Holness said it represented a significant milestone in the long-standing relationship between the two countries. He added that it further underscored the importance of shared values of friendship, cooperation, and mutual respect.
In almost all the countries in which we have a diaspora, our representation goes very high. We have Jamaicans in politics, we have Jamaicans in the clergy, we have Jamaicans in the judiciary and law, in business, in education, in commerce, and I'm certain that it is the case here in the Bahamas.
The opening of the consulate office was a part of engagements by the Prime Minister and his team who were in the Bahamas for the 44th regular meeting of the heads of government of CARICOM last week.
I think it is one which will truly have Jamaicans feel like they are home and that they are able to access services in a dignified way, even as we work on expanding what we're able to offer online so that the demands on the ground across the globe will become a little less fraught, I think, for our very small teams.
We wanted a space that we could have persons come inside and access our services. We've done visas, we're doing citizens. They're actually Bahamians who want to become Jamaican citizens as well through marriage, and so we process that. So it is a very good relationship, one that we intend to build even further as we foster this home for the Jamaican consulate.
Back home, national security and constitutional reform were the two main topics discussed at the Vale Royal Talks, which resumed on Sunday. The meeting was facilitated by the Jamaica Umbrella Group of Churches with Prime Minister Andrew Holness, members of his cabinet, and the Leader of the Opposition, Mark Golding, and members of his team attending. Prime Minister Holness says the Vale Royal Talks is a signal to Jamaicans that their political leaders maintain an open dialogue to resolve major issues that concern them. He says the talks, which have become a part of our democratic tradition, have been useful for political parties to find space that is created for discussion under the Chatham House rules.
Meaning what we discuss here, unless it is agreed, will not be made public. There would be a joint communique, obviously, but it gives a free space for us to talk about the important issues of the country. And we intend to utilize this space to make progress on the issues that divide us or are contentious at the moment, in the interests of the people of Jamaica.
The fact that there may be disagreement at times, that should not be regarded as in and of itself a problem for the country. It's a question of how we resolve those differences and the manner in which we conduct ourselves in bringing our points of view forward.
A release from the Office of the Prime Minister indicates that both sides engaged in a full and frank discussion with a shared commitment to reaching a consensus where possible and obtaining a better understanding from which to move forward. The National Works Agency, NWA, is undertaking a major road repair along a section of the Falmouth to Springvale corridor between the Martha Brae and Holland communities. The project is valued at approximately $15 million and represents the second phase rehabilitation process of the 16-kilometer stretch of roadway, of which 500 meters are targeted. A release from the NWA's Western region says the project involves drainage improvement works and the reshaping and asphalting of the targeted section of the roadway using asphaltic concrete. The project, which is being undertaken through the Maintenance of Secondary Roads program, is expected to be completed by the end of April 2023. The Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, through the NWA, is now actively exploring financing options for rehabilitation of the remaining sections along the Falmouth to Springvale corridor. In the meantime, work is now far advanced along the Wakefield to Deeside corridor in Trelawney. The 4-kilometer stretch of roadway is being rehabilitated through a contract valued at just over $145 million. It involves drainage and base improvements, road resurfacing, sidewalk construction, installation of a pedestrian crossing, and road markings. Measures by the National Water Commission, NWC, to reduce non-revenue water, NRW, in the corporate area and Portmore St. Catherine is reaping success. NRW refers to water that is lost from theft or broken pipelines for which the NWC cannot receive income. Minister with responsibility for water, Senator Matthew Samuda, says the installation of new pipes and proper water pressure measuring in Portmore have saved over 30% of energy usage for that section of the island.
In the Kingston metropolitan area, this project has already cut NRW from some 71% to under 38% already in the last 5 years. A large part of this NRW project will indeed be the mobilization of relaying of pipes, pressure monitors, ensuring we're not either under pumping or over pumping so that people get regulated pressure, and indeed installation of meters at the household level.
The minister was speaking at last week's commissioning of the 50,000-gallon storage tank replacement project in Yorktown, Clarendon. He pointed to a need for the NWC to build infrastructure that would fundamentally change its capacity to store, process, and deliver water.
So projects like this tank that reduce the need for pumping hours, absolutely critical. Projects looking at systems that can allow for gravity-fed water, absolutely critical. Looking at our leakage so that we're not pumping water into the ground, absolutely critical. It is why also the NWC is actively looking at all of the opportunities to engage renewable energy and to manage our consumption.
And finally, approximately 40 residents of the St. James Infirmary are now able to occupy the new $45 million male ward that was built at the facility in Albion, St. James. The ward was a joint initiative between the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development and the St. James Municipal Corporation. It was officially opened by Portfolio Minister Desmond McKenzie recently. The new facility is equipped with all the necessary amenities, including dormitories, a doctor's office, physiotherapy room, shower room, and bathroom. Additionally, approximately $11 million was spent to outfit the ward with medical equipment, therapeutic beds, stand aids, furniture, and appliances, among other provisions. Minister McKenzie says an overall figure of more than $1 billion has been spent to improve infirmaries across the island to cater to the needs of the most vulnerable.
Improving the conditions of the less fortunate must become a priority of the government. All infirmaries in Jamaica, under this administration, have received significant benefits. None has escaped our improvements.
He adds that focus will now be placed on the construction of a new kitchen and dining hall at the St. James Infirmary, which welcomed the commissioning of a therapeutic park last November. And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Stephen McHugh. Thanks for watching.
Known to many for the Morant Bay Rebellion, this parish stands on enchanting history, much left to be explored by many. Coming up next, we take a look into the plans to make St. Thomas a tourist destination.
Visions of a coffee trail and a Bath butterfly farm are among a decade-long plan to lure tourists to the parish of St. Thomas. It's being considered as the Pearl of the East. Tapped for its rich culture and unspoilt natural beauty, St. Thomas is forecast as the next tourism frontier. Realizing its potential, the Ministry of Tourism has embarked on an initiative to develop the parish.
The study has been done, the documents are before us. The St. Thomas Destination Development and Management Plan has been completed. The plan has identified 51 projects for implementation over the decade to 2030, of which 40 projects will be led by the Ministry of Tourism. It involves so many moving parts that have to come together, and it's a multi-sectoral approach. In other words, it's all hands on deck. The destination assessment of St. Thomas identified that the parish has numerous attractions and places suitable for development of tourist accommodation of various types, which should appeal to a wide cross-section of prospective visitors.
23 priority initiatives have been identified for development. Among these are the Morant Bay Historic District Project. This will involve restoring the historic buildings and monuments in Morant Bay Square in honor of national heroes Paul Bogle and George William Gordon. Further east in the parish, the ministry will seek to establish the Pera Eco Resort Village and Golf Course to feature a marina, super yacht facilities, horseback riding, and other amenities. To ensure that these projects come to fruition, Priority Initiative 23 is to attract investors and implementation partners. The ministry is targeting local and foreign investments to develop infrastructure, tourism attractions, and experiences in St. Thomas.
Its close proximity to Kingston, and especially to the Norman Mann International Airport, suggests that the considerable tourism development is possible there, which will serve as a catalyst for the wider social and economic development of the parish.
The plan speaks to all sectors in the parish benefiting from tourism, providing economic viability in communities beyond Jamaica's traditional resort areas.
We want to introduce our visitors to more community tourism experiences. This increased variety of experience will give the visitor the feeling of having a multi-destination vacation without ever leaving our shores. Our new marketing packages will encourage our visitors to take excursions to local shopping establishments, restaurants, entertainment facilities, and bars. We will also encourage them to wander along our beaches, rivers, or local fishing villages. Critical, in fact, in our shift to increase awareness of our community tourism offering will be a targeted campaign focused on our many cultural and heritage assets. We know that St. Thomas will take some time as we grow. We have to deal with zoning there. We have to deal with a lot of environmental issues that we'll have to settle. There's infrastructure that needs to be developed. Water to be developed in the areas, electricity, and then to look at product development in a big way. Hotels to be built, villas, parks, gardens, and then to really develop in my mind, the signature product for the parish, the Bath Fountain. Resetting the Jamaican tourism, we'll identify and establish innovative policies, systems, protocols, and standards that assure our visitors a safe, secure, and seamless experience while building out a new national tourism model based on a diversified portfolio of unique and authentic attractions and activities which draw heavily on the Jamaica's natural and cultural assets.
Gardens are beautiful depictions of nature's flora and fauna that need to be preserved not only for their beauty, but for longevity and educational enlightenment. Up next, we learn about some of our natural treasures.
We're here in St. Thomas at one of the oldest botanical gardens in the Western Hemisphere, the Bath Botanical Gardens. This is the beginning of a journey to discover the scientific, cultural and historical value of public gardens. Come now, let's explore these national and natural treasures. So what differentiates a public garden from a regular place where flowers and trees grow?
A public garden is an institution where plants are collected for the purpose of education, research, conservation, and recreation.
Along with Bath, there are 3 other public gardens on the island: Castleton in St. Mary and Hope and Syncona Gardens, both in St. Andrew. The public can access these venues at no cost. Today, we'll be exploring Bath and Castleton. Except for Hope Gardens, the Public Gardens Division of the Ministry of Agriculture, Commerce, Industry and Fisheries, MICAF, preserves and maintains these natural beauties.
The objective then of the public garden is to conserve the biodiversity of plant life in the island. So we are here to ensure that the plants are maintained, they are conserved, they are preserved, that research is conducted on them so that generations and generations will have that area.
Bath Botanical Garden was the first public garden established on the island. As a research site, imported plants were introduced here to assess how they would adapt to the tropical environment.
Food that Jamaicans love, like breadfruit, was first introduced to this garden by Captain Bligh. He came here with the breadfruit, the ackee and OTT apple, those are the famous ones. Other plants were introduced to the garden that people see all the time, the bougainvilleas, the crotons, all of these were first introduced to the gardens.
Constant flooding from the nearby sulfuric spring destroyed many of the plants and led to a decline of the garden. Though nowhere near its former glory, the space still provides the opportunity for persons to come and enjoy nature's bounty.
Bath is a beautiful garden. It's one of the gardens that has the atmosphere that you come in here. It's a cool, calming environment that I would encourage anybody to come. If you want to study, you can come here and study. If you want to just come out with your church group, want to come out with any little grouping, or even yourself and a friend can come and walk and learn about the different plants that are in the garden.
Bath's fall saw the rise of this location as the premier growing spot for exotic plants in Jamaica.
The garden you're visiting is Castleton Botanical Garden. It was owned by a man called Colonel Castle. Colonel Castle traveled all over the country and bring plants from different countries and plant here. So when he get old, he donated to the government of Jamaica. The government finished cultivate it and give it its name, Castleton Botanical Garden.
Growing here are many of the plants introduced on the island in the 19th and 20th century. These include poinciana, Bombay mango, navel orange and tangerine.
One time it had over 400 palms. I think we're down to 180 species. So you have an area dedicated to the various palms that were introduced into the gardens. You also have rare fruits like mangosteen, and they have another one, the red velvet apple, that you wouldn't find anywhere else.
This is the Phoenix palm. When you knock it like this with a stone, it gives you sound. Why it gave you that sound? Because it's hollow inside. The more it grows old, the more it expands hollow.
Educational tours are just some of the offerings here at Castleton. But you can stop by for a swim if that's your thing. Perhaps a cookout is more your flavor. Or set up a spot on the lawn and bask in the glory of the great outdoors. Our expedition of the historic Bath and diverse Castleton Gardens ends here. Syncona and hope await, but in another edition of Jamaica Magazine. Until then, keep looking out.
The Wildlife Protection Act is a piece of legislation here in Jamaica. It was enacted in 1945 that tries to look at our animals or wildlife on the island of Jamaica and try to ensure that they are conserved to some degree and not overexploited. So they're also, as an island, we have a lot of unique species, and if we lose those species on the island, it's gone to the entire world. So that is also one of the reasons why we have this piece of legislation, to ensure that Jamaica can maintain its wildlife and preserve the wildlife for future generations. In the Jamaican context, being an island, being very small, some persons have never left the island before, and so Jamaica seems big, but Jamaica is really very small. We have a lot to lose. We have a lot of resources and we have a lot to lose. So we're encouraging the public not to over-harvest, not to go against the Wildlife Protection Act and take animals that are considered protected species. And if animals are in a vulnerable situation where you think they need assistance, we encourage persons to first contact NEPA at 754-7540 and ask for assistance, especially if those animals have the potential of doing harm or being dangerous.
We just learned about the importance of preserving our island's gardens and the variety of plants they house. Now, let's turn our attention to protecting our wildlife. Remember the term ecosystem? Well, in order for us humans to have a healthy, functioning ecosystem, we must protect our wildlife, for they help us to have enough food and to make a living. Watch this.
There are increasing threats to Jamaica's biological resources, like our plants or animals, due to events like habitat degradation or pollution. And globally, cycles like animal poaching to fuel a thriving fashion industry continues to hover over the idea of sustainable life in the wild. While Jamaica and the rest of the world's ecological challenges of today need innovative solutions, understanding our wildlife, what to protect, the need to protect it, and those mobilized to protect it is one of the biggest starts.
The overall goal for wildlife conservation is really to try and preserve a particular species in its natural environment. So the species that are protected, how do we determine those? Well, Jamaica, again, as an island, has a lot of unique species. So that's one of the first things we look at. What are the things that are unique to Jamaica? What are the things that are endemic? So we're looking at endemic species, not just animals, but also plants. And we are trying to see how we can ensure that we don't lose those species. There are also species whose numbers are very small. They're not necessarily endemic. Some of them are more widespread, but their species in Jamaica are very small, and they may have a higher threat of exploitation. For example, persons are going to try and harvest them, and so we try to put some form of control onto the amount of harvest that is done. So in order to do that, we have to bring those species under the Wildlife Protection Act so we can better regulate these activities.
So how do we necessarily choose which animals fall under the country's Wildlife Protection Act?
Now, how do we choose these? Well, we look at what is native, what is endemic, and then we actually do surveys. We look at what the population numbers are like. We also signatory to several international treaties that actually tell us that certain species that we have on our island are actually endangered, critically endangered on a global scale. And so we have to play our part here in Jamaica to ensure that those species are not lost.
And then there is the issue of domesticated animals, those that are dependent on humans, because over time they have become genetically adopted to live alongside us. But more and more persons are stepping into the wild for new breeds to domesticate. But disturbing that pattern can have implications.
Domesticated animals are really animals that are very dependent on man and very used to habitualize to man. And so we talk about cats and dogs, some pigeons, for example, your rock pigeons, your everyday domestic pigeons. Those are domestic animals. Now, some of our wildlife persons would like to keep as pet. They are not domesticated animals. They are actually wild animals. Our parrots, for example, we have two endemic species of parrot, the yellow-billed parrot and the black-billed parrot, and persons would tend to want to keep those as pet. And they are actually protected because their population is low. First off, they're endemic. Their population is very low, and their population is also declining. And so we're trying to protect those species.
From around August to somewhere in September, our bird shooting season is a welcome activity. But even these licensed activities, the National Environment and Planning Agency NEPA is regulating how we protect our endemic species in the wild.
We have hunting season, that is something that is actually regulated. NEPA also declares what are known as game reserves. And game reserves are areas where we do not want any hunting activity to occur. Because annually we have annual game bird hunting season, and so we have game reserves to protect populations, especially breeding populations of these birds, so that they are not overexploited. So game reserves are areas where no one is allowed to hunt, and we actually created a law in such a way that all forest reserves that are managed by Forestry Department are actually, in effect, game reserves as well. So in that sense, NEPA does have a role in forest reserves in ensuring that no hunting occurs within forest reserves.
So, next time you roam a rugged landscape or pass by the carpet of plants lining the roadways, the thick tangles of bushes, or observe the colony of birds or seemingly baleful mongoose, let's observe without disturbing those patterns of life.
The tropical sun, you need some fun, just listen reggae, get some kulu rum. You won't regret it if you stop at the fun can done. Not a day if you see down, cause this a sweet jam down. The beauty of my people bring my peace, music it in your face, every day's a jamboree. We got the most amazing and I know you would agree, the most beautiful women the world has ever seen. Out in Jamaica, everybody want come a yard. Jamaica.
It's so sad for us to go, but fret not, we'll be back tomorrow. Don't forget to visit our website, jis.gov.jm, to catch up on lots more. I'm Theodore Henry from the production team here at the JIS. Thanks for watching.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.